The Struggles of the Modern-Day Demon by Ray of Frost. Summary. Hitoshi is a demon, and sometimes he wishes for a swordsman to come along and put him out of his misery. He becomes a hero student in an attempt to cure his boredom. He ends up becoming the impromptu parent of 19 students and an exasperated teacher. The results have been mixed. Today marked the day Hitoshi officially became older than the Demon King when he perished. The only demon older than him was Yushiro. Coincidentally, Yushiro was the only other demon left alive and demonic after the Demon Slayer Corps disbanded. Hitoshi was one of Lady Tamiyo's demons, but he didn't follow her around like Yushiro. She turned him into a demon, then he disappeared into the night. Hitoshi resurfaced a decade after the defeat of the Demon King. The Kamado siblings made lovely company, especially since Miss Nezuko spent a few years as a demon. In the thousands of years since then, he watched over their descendants and graves because nobody else would. The sun was no longer deadly to him, but it still felt like he was burning alive when he made direct contact with the sunlight. He has yet to catch up with Miss Nezuko in that regard. He doesn't regret giving up his humanity, but it was excruciatingly boring nowadays. Sleep was also something he could never get enough of. He would never pass up the opportunity for a nap. Apparently, he could sustain himself on naps and a minuscule amount of blood. Random pools of blood were easy enough to find with all the crazy villain fights every 5 minutes. His blood demon art was strange. Not as strange as Miss Nezuko's, but strange nonetheless. He called it brainwashing. It was like Lady Tamiyo's, but instead of illusions, the scent of his blood compelled others to do his bidding. On top of that, he had also surpassed Miss Nezuko's strength and regeneration speed. He could probably solo an upper moon if there were any left. Eventually, he stumbled upon a crowd of young humans. If he remembered correctly, he was around high school age when he turned into a demon. The UA entrance exam. He figured it wouldn't hurt to become a pro hero. Getting to legally punch people and save lives in the process seemed like a good enough pastime, and so he registered. Technology has advanced quite a bit from the days of steam engines. Hitoshi was running around the fake city, kicking the heads off of robots like kickballs. He wore a large straw hat with dangling wind chimes he had received from a retired swordsmith ages ago, and a purple Hiyori with wisteria patterns embroidered into it. The Hiyori matched his purple eyes and gravity-defying hair. It was a parting gift from Lady Tamiyo. Underneath the Hiyori were a long-sleeved turtleneck and baggy pants. Black combat boots and thick white leather gloves with slits cut out for his claws had completed the ensemble. It was comfortable and covered all his bare skin. This could count as a hero costume. That'd be nice. The participants that sheared the testing ground were dumbfounded by the brutal display of strength. The teachers in the observation booth were up in arms. The principal simply cackled in delight. As if the kid with the straw hat wasn't enough, the crazy green kid exploded not only the 0-pointer, but all the bones in his right arm and both his legs. The straw hat kid casually lifted the rubble that pinned a girl to the ground and caught the green head kid. What the hell? When his acceptance letter arrived at the Kamado estate, Hitoshi wasn't surprised that he placed first in the entrance exam. He was also unsurprised that his clawed hands had made tying a tie impossible. The sidewalk outside of UA was a surprisingly good place for a nap. As the sun rose, Hitoshi rose from his slumber. He walked into the now open gates of UA and made his way to Class 1A. The chimes on his hat clinked softly as he sauntered through the empty halls. Why was he not surprised that the boy with glasses was in the classroom before him? Not my place to care. Hitoshi walked to the back corner, as far away from a window as possible, and promptly fell asleep. He was not pleased to be awoken by the boy with glasses. "You're worse than you, Shiro. Let me sleep," Hitoshi grumbled. "It is highly disrespectful to wear hats indoors, and it is disgraceful to put your feet on the desk like that," the boy chastised, robotically waving his hands. "And my name is Tenya Ida, not Yushiro." I'm Hitoshi. The hat is to stop burning. Now go away," Hitoshi yawned. "Don't make me use blood demon art." He trailed off into a snore as he fell back asleep. Ida kept chastising him as the rest of Class 1A filtered in. Hitoshi kept tabs on the new sounds that filled the classroom. He opened his eyes when an extra sound emanated from the doorway. On the ground was a guy that looked like a hobo in a yellow sleeping bag. The hobo was clearly more experienced than the other humans, so he was probably the teacher. He made eye contact with Hitoshi and instantly knew that Hitoshi wasn't normal. The two had a staring contest while they waited for the rest of the class to notice the hobo teacher's presence. They stared, unblinking, for 8 minutes, and the class fell silent as they sensed the intense aura between them. Then the hobo blinked and rose from his cocoon. "It took you 8 minutes to settle down. What a waste of time. My name is Shota Aizawa, and I will be your homeroom teacher," the hobo drawled. Then he tossed some gym uniforms onto a nearby desk. "Grab a uniform and meet me outside." The class began to protest, but the melody of Hitoshi's wind chime silenced them as the demon strolled to the pile of uniforms. He glared at the uniforms and held one of them up with a clawed, gloved hand. He quickly inspected all of the uniforms and growled. "Guess I'll burn alive today," he snarled as he held up one of the uniforms by its short sleeve. "None of them have long sleeves." Shota stared at the student that scowled at him, teeth bared. Are those fangs? It took him an embarrassing second to realize the reason for the hostility. Hitoshi burned in the sunlight. Shota would know this if he actually read the student files. Personalized gym uniforms are in your assigned lockers. I apologize for the misunderstanding. Thank you, quick thinking mind. His demonic student glared at him with piercing white slitted pupils and lavender irises before grunting and heading to the locker rooms. The rest of the class was quick to follow. Hitoshi had thankfully calmed down by the time the rest of the class gathered outside. He stared blankly at the blue sky from the safety of the building's shade, his pupils nowhere to be seen. He didn't respond to anything until the students started cheering about being able to use their quirks. He released a low growl in an annoyed response. He stopped when Aizawa continued his explanation, and resumed when the class began protesting Aizawa's threats of expulsion. The demon perked up when the hobo teacher mentioned his name, so he was called to demonstrate the ball throw. When asked what his record in middle school was, he tilted his head and shrugged. He had never done something like this before, so he was curious about his limits. He got into the best throwing stance he could muster and launched the ball with a huff. 734 meters. Decent. Hitoshi continued to crush the fitness tests. Most of the class thought he had a strength-enhancing quirk with a weird drawback. He even outperformed the kid who did have a strength-enhancing quirk. The strength wasn't even the most powerful of his demonic abilities. It was pretty basic. He still had his blood demon art. Why were people surprised by Hitoshi's hero costume? It was just what he wore every day for millennia. Hitoshi maintained his clothing well, but having a copy of his outfit for hero work was nice, so he didn't have to worry about the gifts from old friends getting damaged. He didn't need any support gear, There was no point with his skill set. The others' costumes looked too showy and impractical for his tastes, but who was he to talk? He was thousands of years old. He had old man opinions. Hitoshi had no idea who the overly macho, spandex-clad Western version of Mr. Rengoku was, but everyone seemed excited to have him as a teacher. He was a terrible teacher, though. The Wind Hashira was a better teacher, and that maniac's version of teaching was beating the daylights out of his students. This was at least a proper lesson, compared to the Wind Hashira's, at least. Combat training, in the form of 2v2 brawls. The battles would take place inside faux office buildings for 15 minutes. The villain team needed to protect the bomb for the whole time or incapacitate the hero team. The hero team was tasked with securing the bomb or capturing the villain team. Of course, Hitoshi was on the villain team. His partner was the green boy with the strength-enhancing quirk, and he was against the boy with the electric quirk and the girl with pink skin and eyes that were almost demonic. They weren't like his eyes, so Hitoshi was sure she wasn't an actual demon. Then the discount Flame Hashira announced the beginning of the battle. "Why are you hurting yourself?" the greenette panicked. "Quirk," Hitoshi stated flatly. The green boy made various distressed noises as Hitoshi smeared his blood over the doorframe. I thought your quirk was strength enhancement." "It's not. I'm just setting up my blood demon art." "Blood demon art?" "You'll see. Don't inhale it if you want to stay lucid, though." They waited for a moment for the hero team to show up. Hitoshi maintained his usual pupilless, blank expression as the bright duo burst into the room. "Surrender, villains!" the pink one shouted. "Surrender, The electric one attempted to echo as he fell under Hitoshi's spell. The pink girl was in a similar state. "How does that work?" the green one asked in awe. "The scent of my blood puts people into a trance-like state. It makes them susceptible to my suggestions. For example," Hitoshi turned to the hero team. "Do a silly dance," he commanded. The two complied and did a stupid dance. They were surprisingly coordinated. The greenette chuckled at the sight, but it was time to end the match. "Take a nap," the demon commanded, and the hero team went out like a light. Hitoshi was not a leader. He thought he made that clear, but his classmates elected him as class president anyway. He gave the position to the glasses kid. He seemed reasonably earnest, if a bit annoying. Hitoshi didn't like crowds. He didn't like loud noises. So he was annoyed when the alarms went off in the cafeteria. He was extra annoyed when the students started stampeding into the tiny hallway. Hitoshi removed one of his gloves and dug his claws into his palm. He started bleeding and splattered the blood across the window. It was already sizzling and burning away, but it did its job as a heavily floral scent filled the hallway. "Quit panicking and evacuate in a quiet and orderly fashion," Hitoshi ordered. He hissed as his hand grazed a ray of sunlight as he put his glove back on. Hitoshi hated crowds. Rescue training. The one aspect of heroism Hitoshi had no experience in. That was the purpose of today's field trip. They crowded onto was this a bus? Yeah, bus. And Hitoshi tried his best to nap in a shaded corner. His classmates had other plans. "If we're talking about flashy quirks, I think Bakugo and Todoroki take the cake," the electric boy started. "Oh, I think Hitoshi is the most powerful. He's super manly," a redhead with shark teeth added. "Hey, Hitoshi, your quirk is super manly, but what does it actually do?" If I answer your question, will you leave me alone? Maybe, the redhead teased. Hitoshi groaned and conceded. It's called demon. It makes me a demon. Very creative. Okay, but what does being a demon do? You have ridiculous amounts of strength and stamina, and you're allergic to sunlight. But anything else? The electric boy inquired. Superhuman strength and stamina, obviously. Regeneration. I can regrow limbs. My appearance. Claws, pale complexion, slitted eyes, eternal youth. And then there's my blood demon art. Demon art's like a weird demon quirk. Mine's called brainwashing. I don't feel like explaining its complexities, but I need to bleed to make it work. Oh, I'm allergic to sunlight. Imagine being burned alive. That is what it feels like. Hitoshi figured they wouldn't believe he was an actual demon from the Taisho era, and that he was older than quirks. Like the old legends? The frog girl asked. If only you knew. Hitoshi nodded off for the rest of the bus ride. God, villains are annoying as hell, but oh, so fun to beat up. What's happened? Oh God, he's feral, demon, monster! For lack of a better word, Hitoshi was pissed. These were children. They didn't deserve this cruelty. They had bright innocence in their eyes. Many of the slayers started at the same age as these kids, but they lacked the innocence in their eyes. Class 1A were still children. Aizawa-sensei and 13-sensei were less than pleased with his recklessness, but they couldn't deny how efficient the boy was. Hitoshi cackled as he punched, kicked, and clawed his way through the horde of villains. One of the villains cut off his right forearm, and Hitoshi's blood painted the plaza, filling the place with a flowery aroma. Hitoshi had most of the weaker villains under the spell of his blood demon art, and he commanded them to restrain the remaining villains. As the low-ranked villains fought each other, Aizawa-sensei went around, collecting the other students, as 13-sensei protected the exit route. Hitoshi engaged in combat with the main villains.
A hack. Cheater. A cheater.
The hand villain rasped.
No moo. Kill him!
The bioengineered weapon rushed at the demon, and the two brawled across the plaza. The two monsters had such similar power sets, it made Hitoshi wonder if the Nomu was modeled after the Taisho-era demons. However, Hitoshi hit harder, regenerated faster, and had claws that sliced through his opponent's flesh like tofu. Hitoshi mauled the Nomu to the point where it'd take hours for it to fully regenerate. While fighting the hand villain, Hitoshi would rip off his own limbs as a sacrifice to the villain's disintegration quirk. Hitoshi traumatized the hand and the portal villain before their escape. Nobody had the right to harm innocent and hopeful kids. Little did Hitoshi know, his sudden overprotectiveness got him labeled as the class mom. The demon is the class mom. Huh. Class 1A and its demon mom gained quite a reputation among UA's student body. Hitoshi could care less. Is UA haunted? No, it was Hitoshi. The homeless demon took up a residence in the vents. Who knew that Hitoshi was an actual demon? Nezu and Yushiro. That's it. Hitoshi wasn't even trying to hide it, but the rat principal was the only one to connect the dots. Nezu and Hitoshi would frequently chat about history and politics over tea. Was Hitoshi Aizawa's secret love child? No. It'd be more realistic if the teacher was Hitoshi's 12 times great grand secret love child. How about that, Todoroki? What happened during the sports festival? Hitoshi lazily walked his way through the events and exerted more effort making sure his hat stayed in one piece than actually fighting his classmates. He decided to have a little fun during his match against the support course girl. He didn't wear any of the gear she offered him, but he played along with her 10-minute long advertisement. He took joy in the fact that everyone else was as bored as he was. Hitoshi got quite a few internship offers, but his mom senses were tingling. Glass's kid's older brother was forced into an early retirement by the hero killer, and the familiar aura of vengeance radiated off the boy. He is gonna do something stupid. When he learned that the boy was interning with a hero in the same city his brother was attacked, Hitoshi knew he was aiming for revenge. Thankfully, the same hero Glass's kid was interning with also sent him an offer. Glass's kid knew that Hitoshi was watching him. The demon didn't pay any attention to anything else. So he wasn't surprised that Hitoshi followed him as he searched for the hero killer. The city was under attack, and Glass's kid took the opportunity to slip away from his mentor. As the two ran through the streets, Glass's kid tried to confront Hitoshi. "You cannot stop me from going after the hero killer," the boy asserted. "I wasn't gonna try. I'm not against vengeance, but you aren't strong enough to go at it alone. If you want, I don't want you getting hurt or killed, and you'll need help hiding the body," Hitoshi replied in a tired voice. "Hiding the body?" "I can use my blood demon art to make him forget we were the ones that did him in. If you end up killing him, I'll get rid of him. If you get caught, gone is your career. I know I won't get caught, but I wouldn't forgive myself if I could stop you from dying, getting hurt, and or ruining your career." "Oh, thanks, I guess." "This way." Hitoshi grabbed Glass's kid's wrist and dragged him into an alleyway. Hitoshi heard the sound of a scuffle and smelled the heavy scent of blood. "If I start bleeding, try your best to hold your breath and run away. Unless you're okay with being at my mercy for the next hour." That was the only warning Glass's kid got before they interrupted the hero killer's fight with some random B-list hero. Hitoshi kicked the katana out of the villain's hand and muttered something about knowing kids with a better grip. The demon stood to the side and redirected the villain's attention to the armor-clad hero in training. "Hero Killer Stain, I am the brother of Ingenium, and I'll be the one to continue his legacy and take you down," Glass's kid yelled. "Revenge isn't a very heroic trait. You shall be culled as well," the hero killer sneered, while pointing another sword at the boy. "Vengeance is a good motivator. I have seen plenty of lives saved on their quests for revenge," Hitoshi yawned. "It doesn't happen that often nowadays, but that doesn't discount the validity of the motivation." His voice dropped to a murmur. "I think Tanjiro's motivation was revenge. And he was a great hero, better than that blonde buffoon you call a #1 hero." "Who is this Tanjiro you call a better hero than All Might? All Might is the ideal hero. He isn't like all the fakes, and they're in it for the fame and the money." The hero killer turned his attention and sword to Hitoshi. Based on that response, the entirety of the Demon Slayer Corps were better heroes than All Might. Nobody becomes a Demon Slayer for the money, and they never got any recognition, let alone fame. Though Tanjiro was so kind and pure, he could probably convince today's villains to become pacifists, hold hands with the heroes, and sing Kumbaya with them. God, that kid lost an arm and died ages ago, but he still put your grip to shame. How dare you make a mockery of swordsmanship like that? That was the most Hitoshi had emoted in centuries, and it was over Stain's weak grip of all things. Stain and Hitoshi completely forgot about the initial revenge plot. This was about defending honor. Stain was aiming to kill for his All Might worship, and Hitoshi was going to prove that the hero killer's biggest flaw was his weak grip. The demon walked over to the sword he kicked and stood in a stance he learned from Tanjiro. Hitoshi had a basic understanding of water breathing, the movements, not the breathing, but it was enough to put the heretic in his place. The class's kid stood in awe as his demonic classmate disarmed the hero killer. Literally, he cut off the man's arm, yelling, "Your grip is a disgrace I cannot forgive! You shall pay for it accordingly." If Hitoshi got this riled up about Stain's grip, he didn't want to know what would happen if one of his classmates got hurt. The hero killer was found in an alley the next day. One of his swords was embedded in his shoulder. His other katana pinned his severed head to a wall. Let this be a warning to all who call themselves swordsmen. If your grip is as disgraceful as this heretic's, cut off your arm before I cut it off for you, was written in the hero killer's blood. There were no traces of the one that killed Stain. The hero that almost died at the hands of Stain couldn't recall anything that happened before lunch that fateful day, and the handwriting wasn't distinct in the slightest. The hero manual hadn't the slightest clue that his interns had anything to do with Stain's murder. The demonic one had been guiding Ingenium's brother to the train station when he caught up to them. The intern stated that they saw Nomu and the other went into a state of shock, so they were going home. A few sword-wielding heroes retired or took leaves of absence in the following week, stating something about taking time to strengthen their grips. Shota Aizawa was not expecting to get his butt handed to him by his student. The pro hero was never more terrified of one of his students. Apparently, Hitoshi's strength wasn't tied to his quirk factor. The ability to kick through concrete walls is something the demonic student can do while Shota's quirk was active. You have a good grip, the demon said plainly, humming in approval. The two engaged in a tug-of-war over Shota's capture scarf. Almost as good as Tanjiro's. Definitely better than the heretic, he mumbled. What is this kid's deal with grips? Was it related to the hero killer's murder? The pro didn't have enough time to scrutinize his student before he was dragged forward and handcuffs slapped on his wrist. Hitoshi had soloed the pro hero for his final exam. Good heavens, Rat Lord have mercy on his tired soul. The villain, Muscular, was the second person to fall victim to the Blood Rider, the name of the serial killer with a ridiculous standard for grip strength of all things. His message written in the dead villain's blood was, for once, this guy had a decent grip. However, using said grip to crush a child's skull is not okay. This deadbeat wasn't a swordsman. He wasn't even a martial artist. But I think it's high time for me to expand my focus to anybody that claims to be a decent fighter. I am severely disappointed in what the world calls villains nowadays. The next victim of the Blood Rider was the shadow leader of the League of Villains. Wow. If it weren't for the fact that I'm incapable of dying, I would probably be dead. However, this absolute joke of a boogeyman can't hold a candle to the villain of my childhood. Muzan could beat this guy 5 ways to Sunday if he wasn't a long-dead coward. The worst part, though, is this guy's terrible grip. There have been quirkless children with better grips than this son of a... all for one? More like all for nothing of any substance. The final victim of the Blood Rider was the young Yakuza boss Overhaul. Both of the man's arms had been ripped off and his skull caved in. This evil is an absolute. His grip was completely trash. The look on his face as I regenerated my head after he exploded it with his quirk was completely worth the excruciating pain. But nothing could make up for his treatment of an actual toddler. The rants left by the serial killer had convinced many heroes, villains, and martial artists to retire, and devices for grip strength training flew off the shelves. Nobody ever found a trace of the Blood Rider, aside from its brutally murdered victims and increasingly vulgar language. Hitoshi really wasn't hiding that he was an actual demon. Really! His classmate. His class is really just dumb. The League of Villains was still at large, so UA made dormitories. How has nobody questioned his antics? It turns out one classmate does notice. UA's resident conspiracy theorist, Shoto Todoroki. Hey, Hitoshi. Is Hitoshi your surname or your given name? Because that's the only name you've ever used. You even use it as your hero name, the heterochromatic boy inquired. You're one to talk, Hero Shoto, the demon quipped back. And Hitoshi is my given name. It's been a few thousand years since I've used my surname, and I think it was Shinzo? I'm not really sure. Most demons used different names than when they were human, so demons with surnames were far and few between. The demon and half boy were sitting on the rooftop of Heights Alliance, the 1A dormitory, basking in the starlight. Hitoshi didn't have his hat, only a t-shirt and his usual baggy pants. His bare, clawed feet dangled over the edge of the building. Shoto sat next to Hitoshi, his feet planted firmly on the roof. Shoto was the only classmate of his Hitoshi bothered learning the name of. The scarred boy reminded the demon of Gyu. The teen and the water Hashira were both quiet. Although they seemed cold, they were mostly just socially awkward than anything else. And they were both great listeners. You make a lot of references to pre-quirk eras, almost as if you lived during those times. Shoto started with a pensive expression. Is this one of those conspiracy theories of yours? Not a conspiracy. I'm sure of this one. You talk about people from legends like old friends and use honorifics like you're from a pre-quirk era. You act like a parent. You even parent Mr. Aizawa. You talk about being thousands of years old. Mr. Aizawa's quirk doesn't work on you. You refer to people as humans and yourself as a demon, but not in a joking or self-deprecating manner. You talk like you've met other demons despite how unique your quirk is, and the other demons you speak of aren't your family. You're not a teenager. You look like one, but you're not. You're an ancient, virtually immortal demon from the Taisho era. Shoto looked into the dull violet eyes of his demonic friend. Hitoshi chuckled. Of course you're the first to notice, Mr. Are you Aizawa's secret love child or something? It was a toss-up between you and Shrub. Midoriya probably believed your quirk excuse. Wait, I was right? The team lit up. Yeah, you were right. But I don't think anyone would believe you with some of your other theories. Boy who called wolf and all that. Oh. I never thought about that. Oops. Well, that caused a lot of confusion. That is the one social thing I can do. 1A started noticing a distinct uptick in strange occurrences. Hitoshi, mysteriously appearing out of nowhere, was normal. Shoto, following suit, was not. The quiet teen and demon conversing while hanging upside down from a vent caused Glasses Kid to faint. Hitoshi taught Shoto how to wield a sword. The flaming ice sword gave Aizawa-sensei the headache of a lifetime. Shrub, panicked, when he caught Shoto and Hitoshi discussing the pain of being burned alive like they were talking about the weather. At least Hitoshi actually started emoting more often. What was even more concerning was the slowly growing number of students with sun allergies. 1A was the Hell class. They earned the moniker from how often villains attacked them. It was even worse when Hitoshi wasn't around, for whatever reason, to do damage control. Many students wound up on deathbeds, but none of them died. None of them aged either. They also gained unexplained abilities, like they grew 3 more quirks. However, with the majority of the class becoming demons, they truly were a hellish class. Notes. Shoto, it don't bite. Hitoshi, snarls. Stain, yes it do. The author's note, which I wrote because I'm the author, goes on to explain that I didn't know what I was thinking when I wrote this because it was at like 3 in the morning when I wrote it. But I was already planning on making a series a more involved Demon Slayer crossover series. Actually, that's what this thumbnail's for, is for that series. I just used it because I didn't feel like making another one for a one-shot. So, yeah, you've got that to look forward to. Yay!